Hello and welcome back to the Sports Brief Podcast. Colton Hall. Excited for everybody to join us. Really excited, actually. First of all, we got our co-host Tristin. How you doing, big guy?
Doing good. It's good to be back.
Absolutely. And then also got a special guest, former college football teammate, former college quarterback, Skyler Shearer. Thanks again, man, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we were really trying to get you on for the last couple of weeks, so we're really glad we could make it happen. Got a full show to talk about tonight. Some things with Drew Lock and the Broncos. We got the really big NFC, AFC teams to watch in the playoffs. Marshawn Lynch going back, beast mode going back to the Seahawks, and all that. But the first thing we got to ask you guys to do is subscribe for weekly, really just sporting news, so that way you guys know what's going on. Subscribe so you guys get all the latest hot takes and everything going along with everything that is sports. Let's see here. Let's actually kick this thing off right away. I'm hand off right to you, quarterback. I'm gonna give it to you about this whole Drew Lock thing. I actually wrote down before we started. I actually had you mentioned 4 games. In the 4 games he started, I hate to take these stats away from you, but just looking at I'm doing an eye test, being a former defensive end in college, 65% completion percentage, 843 yards, and 6 touchdowns against only 3 picks. Now that may not seem like MVP numbers, but for a rookie quarterback that a lot of people, including myself, I would say that weren't really high on him coming out of the draft. That's impressive. What's your been whole? He's also a diehard Broncos fan. For those of you that don't know, what's been your reaction to Drew Lock?
So kind of like what you said, I was actually kind of disappointed when we took him in the second round. I thought we kind of reached on him. Thought he was a system quarterback, bad footwork, live arm, kind of just made plays in the spread system in college. Mm-hmm. And after Flacco. I was kind of just like, I was hoping he was going to come off IR and do something, and I've been surprised. He shut me up these last 4 games. He's 3-1. The one game he lost against Kansas City.
Tough team.
It snowed. That's his first game. You can't use that as an excuse, but a tough game to go into. Like you said, 843 yards, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 89.4 quarterback rating. I just want to throw you some numbers real quick. So I took Rodgers, Manning, Brady, and Breeze. I took all their first 4 games as a starter in the NFL, not the games they came in when he took over for Bledsoe, stuff like that. These are their first 4 NFL starts. Rodgers was 2-2 as a starter. All right, he threw for 961, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, a quarterback rating of 92.1.
Wow.
Pretty similar to Locke, which I think I draw a lot of comparison between those 2 players. Manning, 0-4. Don't let this deceive you. 992 yards, 3 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, a 53 quarterback rating. Brady, 3-1, 820 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 picks, a 95 quarterback rating. And Drew Brees was 4-0, 608 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 88.6 quarterback rating. He falls right in the middle of all those guys.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be good. If we can get one more weapon, we got a lot of money to spend in the offseason, around 68 million coming into the offseason.
A lot of dough. It's a lot of dough.
I think he can do good. He has a lot to clean up in the offseason. Footwork is still sloppy. I don't think being on IR, being hurt, don't think he had a lot of time to work on that. But when you just see some of the throws he's making off his back foot, rolling out on the pocket when he should stay in a clean pocket. It's just phenomenal, some of the plays he's making. And like I said, he's shut me up. I'm a firm believer. I'm going to go buy a jersey.
Oh, wow. Tristin, I know there's been a lot of hullabaloo, for a lack of a better term, about how, Drew Lock and the Broncos and everything. And I'm kind of glad he didn't play against the Vikings because I feel like, especially how their defense is playing and their secondary mainly, I feel like he would have had a field day as well. I know you've been able to see this. You've done your research too. What's maybe something you've noticed about the Drew Lock and the Broncos right now?
Yeah, I watched the last couple of games he started. To answer your question, if I think he's a franchise quarterback, obviously for right now, the answer for me is no. I think a franchise player, let alone a quarterback, is someone who is both one of the best athletes on your team and somebody that their team can build their franchise around for the foreseeable future. So in my opinion, no, he's not yet a franchise quarterback, but he has definitely proven that he can be a starter in the NFL. And he's definitely earned more playing time, and probably, in my opinion, he'll be the starter going into the 2020 season. I don't really think there's much question about that, especially if they manage to beat the Raiders. I think it's the Raiders this week, if I'm right, Skyler.
Yep.
So yeah, if he manages to go 4-1 as a starter, all of his wins, I mean, they've came against pretty decent defenses. I mean, the Chargers have a pretty good defensive line. They get after the quarterback. The Texans got a pretty solid defense. The Lions defense isn't great, but still a solid unit. His only loss against the Chiefs, and yeah, their defense is playing out of their mind right now. And it was in the snow, like you said, so that's definitely a hard game to prepare for if you're a quarterback. I actually played a little scout team quarterback in high school, so I got to practice in the snow a bit, and it's a whole nother ball game.
Oh yeah,
but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that Locke's been doing that's been impressive. Some stuff that I pulled up. He's the first Broncos rookie quarterback to win his first 2 starts since John Elway. In the game against the Texans, Drew Lock became the first rookie in the Super Bowl era to pass for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in his first career road start. Mm-hmm. And he has a chance to become just the 3rd quarterback in the Broncos history to win 4 of his first 5 career starts, which neither John Elway nor Peyton Manning could do. So he's definitely in good company with history, and the statistics that you brought up. And then I read something that his teammates say about him. His teammates say that he brings some enthusiasm and a swagger with him that hasn't really been around the Broncos locker room at the quarterback position for a while, especially the first part of this season with Flacco and whatever else you had. But yeah, definitely if he can manage to beat the Raiders this week and finish the season 4-1, and they definitely, like you said, they have a ton of money to build around him if that is what they choose to do. Starting the 2020 season, I think the Broncos, with the defense they have, they'll definitely be scary, and I do think he is the guy for the job. It's just 4 games, it's a small sample size, and we just gotta look for what he can do with a full season under his belt next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as Von Miller says, the kid's a rock star. He's going to be a superstar in this league.
Yeah, I believe him.
That's something coming from a guy like Von Miller, especially, who's played against some of the greats, and with some of the greats for that matter. I actually want to say something. I believe it's too early, just because, I mean, we all jumped on the Baker Mayfield bandwagon right away, just because it was something that, looking on it, first year, I think he broke the most touchdown passes in a rookie season. Yeah, so. Record. And, I'm looking at it, but I think Peyton Manning also broke the interception record for most interceptions by a rookie quarterback too. So yeah, I'm looking at this. I'm saying it's too early, but I want to reiterate on that. When the Vikings played the Broncos at home and were down 20-0, I remember thinking, this is typical Vikings. But I didn't take into consideration that how well put together that the rest of the Broncos team really is. Let me throw some facts at you, and Skyler, you already know this. The Broncos are playing without probably one of their better defensive players in Bradley Chubb. They've obviously got Von Miller. They've got a stout defense, and Mike Zimmer even said it after the game. Kirk Cousins was able to come back against one of the best defenses in the entire NFL, so that was absolutely impressive. But I'm telling you, if you put Drew Lock in there from the start, I think this is even just looking at from the last couple of weeks, the last month, this is a different Broncos team. And I was talking about this with Skyler before the show and everything. Let's look at some of the offensive weapons that they have. Noah Fant, just looking, I think he had 100 yards against the Vikings. He is going to be a hand. Speedy, nobody can catch him. He's got good hands. Cortland Sutton shredded the Vikings. I don't need to say anything else. The dude's going to be a hand. Phillip Lindsay. Absolutely. I mean, dude's going to rush for 1,000 yards this year, and the one thing I've noticed is, especially with talking with Skyler, all these guys are undrafted, or most of these guys are, a good portion of them. And I'm looking at this. If Drew Lock can have just a little bit more help next year, especially along the offensive line, and looking at all this, defense is already set. It's not rocket science. You don't need to do anything there. Build around this kid and let him do his thing, because he is I think he's going to take the NFL by storm next year. And that goes into my next point. The Broncos are going to be a dangerous team next year. I believe that they're actually going to make the playoffs next year. I'm even considering saying that they'll be in the top 3 seeds, and that's pretty blasphemous, especially when you consider the fact that the Chiefs. The Patriots made it for the 11th year in a row. But I'm telling you, this Broncos team, even Mike Zimmer said it. This team is well put together. They've lost, what was it, like 7 games by 3 points or less. It was crazy. Like, this team is literally one possession away from beating multiple teams. It's just the whole quarterback situation, figuring that out. This is a really good team, and it's kind of disrespectful when you think about it. The Broncos are them having all this talent and people forgetting about it. It's easy to see why they did, but I really truly believe the Broncos are going to be a tough team next year. Also, the reason I mentioned that Skyler was a college quarterback is because quarterbacks have a different way of seeing things. Can you kind of tell me, Skyler, as a quarterback, some of the what's what maybe surprised you the most about Drew Lock? Because I know you watch his games, I know you watch everything about him. What surprised you the most?
Honestly, I think he's very poised. I think he's has a very strong knowledge of the game. I've seen him come up to the line on third down. I have 4 of them written down here in each one of the games where he's actually checked. I haven't seen Joe Flacco make a check all year. And another thing that really gets me is play action. Joe Flacco was so slow, had the worst play action fake I could see. All teams had to do was key on Phillip Lindsay, and I feel like he's brought a spark. He is an athlete. He actually has he's averaging 5 yards a carry on 8 carries, Locke is. So, he's moving the ball a little bit. He's ran for 2 big third downs. But my biggest thing with him is I think he's very poised. He stands in the pocket. He makes checks. He makes his pre-snap reads. I think he's good. I think the only thing that's hurting him right now is moving out of a clean pocket, and I think his footwork is god-awful. He's my franchise quarterback. I'm sold. I'm bought in. And kind of like what you said, you go back to week 1 against the Bears. Von Miller touched the quarterback on his shoulder. 15-yard penalty, 6 seconds left, moves them into field goal range. They hit the field goal to win. Then you come down to Jacksonville 2 weeks later. Same exact thing happens. Minshew gets touched on the back of the neck by Chubb. 15-yard penalty, complete a 5-yard out, kick a field goal to win. Then you come down to Indianapolis, Von Miller, another personal foul, field goal to win.
And I felt like the Bronco game would be a perfect trap game for the Vikings, and Tristin actually said it on air that the Broncos would beat the Vikings, and I'm so glad that didn't happen. You guys really don't know how hard I was praying at halftime.
Yeah, damn close.
It was real close, and I remember thinking, why? How does this happen? Because usually a team like last year was the Bills were actually a good team, but I was like the Broncos are not that great. Well, then I went back and looked at it, and I listened to Mike Zimmer, I listened to some of the teams. I looked at some of those things. I'm like, this team, it's really easy. That's how it goes sometimes in the NFL. One play can literally derail an entire game, or for that matter, that those derailed games can turn into a derailed season. So looking at this, like I said, I'm really excited about the Broncos and Drew Lock. I'm a huge underdog guy, so I expect him to have a really good year next year. Looking at this, the playoffs this year are actually shaping up to be really competitive, and I'm going to start with the Packers here because God knows we have to. And looking at especially the way that things are shaping up, it looks like the Packers are probably going to have a number 1 or number 2 seed, though, as it's all shaken out. I maybe some teams. Tristin, give me some teams maybe from the NFC and the AFC that you're really thinking could really blow the playoffs wide open.
Yeah, I'll start with the NFC, and I'm not picking them because I'm biased. I'm picking the Packers. And the reason I'm picking the Packers, you got to look at what they just did to the Vikings in their own house. Like, Rodgers even had a bad game on his terms. I don't know, he had the 200-something yards, 203 or 4, and 1 pick. Yeah. And, it wasn't a good game, but offense and defense, when it really mattered, when it came down to controlling the clock, Aaron Rodgers was a freaking technician when it came to game management. And, checking plays at the line of scrimmage, giving Aaron Jones the ball, doing what they needed to do. They did a heck of a job the second half of that game to get, I don't know how many points they scored the second half, 20, and the Vikings didn't score any, if I'm right.
Not a single one.
You got to, Aaron Jones is starting to take his game to another level. And whenever Jamal Williams gets the ball, he looks great too. He runs over people for at least 5 or 7 yards every time he touches the ball, almost. And the defense, I don't even know what to say about them. They're looking like the defense we saw week 1 and 2 now.
That wasn't very hard, especially considering how the Vikings played. That was
true. The Vikings don't have an offensive line, but I think the Packers defense is it's deceptively good. I don't know. The pass rush with Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith. Zadarius Smith was an absolute monster against the Vikings. Yeah, I don't really know. I think as soon as when Green Bay gets into they're into the playoffs. If they can lock up the number 1 or 2 seed and have home playoff games and make everybody come play on the frozen tundra, I feel like that's going to be huge. Aaron Rodgers loves playing in the cold. I don't really know much other quarterbacks that enjoy playing in the cold. Yep. But I just think when the Packers start playing in the postseason, Aaron Rodgers, the whole team is starting to play a little bit better now that it's the end of the season. And all they got to do to get the number 1 seed is beat Detroit this week, which should be a pretty easy task. But I think Seattle has to beat San Francisco in order for Green Bay to get the number 1 seed.
Correct.
Which would be tough. So Green Bay's probably looking at the number 2 seed realistically. But, either way, that's home playoff games. If they get a home playoff game, I'm going to go to it for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And,
I want to make a quick point about that game, that Packers-Minnesota game.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I'm a big Aaron Rodgers guy. I like him. I like you guys' defense. Like you said, Smith is an absolute savage. I think he's wonderful. But you take Kendricks and Anthony Barr out of almost the entire second half. You don't have arguably the best running back in the league. If you would have had the 2 star linebackers in from Minnesota, I don't think Aaron Jones would have ran for 154 yards. I think if Adam Thielen would have been healthy, you could just see he's not as 100%. And if they had Dalvin Cook, I think it would have been a completely closer game. But you made some good points on him. You can't ever count Aaron Rodgers out. And like you said, if they do get some home field and it's cold, they're going to win the games. But I just think if Minnesota could have been healthier, Kendricks leaving the game at halftime was a big shutout for that. It was a close game at half.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. If they would have had Barr and Kendricks the whole game and Dalvin Cook, they didn't even have what's your backup running back's name that was out too?
Alexander Madison, who's actually having a really good year. So
yeah, Madison was out, so it was just Boone and C.J. Ham, right?
And they ended up benching Ham, who right away that fantasy owners were like, "Hey, I'm going to pick this guy up." They ended up benching him, and they actually relied on Amir Abdullah. If you can rely on him, let's see what. I don't know what you're going to do.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm glad somebody else is coming to the rescue of the Vikings here, but I have cried more with the Vikings than I have girls. So at this point, I'm just kind of I'm done with the whole excuses thing for them. I know Barr and Kendricks and everything, but in the NFL, at some point, we have 3 college football players sitting right here. At some point, the next man up mentality has to happen. I don't care if, and that's something I think even Coach Carr said with us, Skyler, and that I'm pretty sure that's what your coach said. I'm at Marty. Excuse me. There is absolutely no excuse for the way the Vikings played. That's the only way I'm going to say about it. It was Mount Marty, right? Tristan, I said it was Mount Marty.
Oh no, University of Mary.
It was University of Mary. I apologize.
Mary.
Yeah. So no, I'm looking at this, and it's the next man up mentality. I apologize. And there's absolutely no way that you can ever make an excuse. And yes, when you want to tell me, that Dalvin Cook is out, I realize that's the whole Minnesota Viking persona. And one player is, we're going to run the ball down your throat, and there's nothing you're going to do to stop it. But the way that the entire team played in the second half, they accepted it. They accepted that outcome. And I was looking at just not a great game. I hope they bounce back, but we'll have to see what happens. Sorry to interrupt you, Tristan. Please continue with teams to watch in the AFC and the NFC.
Oh, shoot. Let's go to the AFC now. The AFC, a team to watch for me is the Tennessee Titans. I picked the Tennessee Titans because they're kind of creeping their way into that number 6 seed. They don't have it locked up yet. They need to beat Houston this week, which would be a tough task. And I think if they don't beat Houston, they need someone. I think they need the Steelers to lose or something like that. But the Titans have all the potential in the world to eliminate a couple teams in the playoffs if they manage to lock up that number 6 seed. That offense, ever since Ryan Tannehill took over, that offense has just caught fire. All of a sudden they have this absurd passing game, and Ryan Tannehill looks like a completely different quarterback than he's ever been. And I got some Tannehill's stats ever since he joined the Titans. 71% completion percentage. He's got 2,600 yards. I'm not sure how many games he started, but he's got 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a 116.5 rating. So it's pretty dang good if you're talking about Ryan Tannehill, because before this, everybody really I don't think anybody really thought Ryan Tannehill was very good when he played for the Dolphins, but I always thought he was something. And I think probably one of the podcasts before the season started, I don't know if I said it on the podcast, but I said it to my friend who's a Titans fan. I said, as soon as Mariota gets hurt, his career in Tennessee is over. I think Tannehill can throw the ball so much better than Marcus Mariota. As soon as Tannehill takes over, it's Tannehill time in Tennessee. You'll see. And sure enough, he's taken over. And you got to give credit to the running backs. They got one of the top probably 4 or 5 backs in the league, and Derrick Henry. He's having an outstanding year. Deion Lewis, very good pass catching back. They got some stud wide receivers. They got A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, and Adam Humphries, I think. Their offensive line is solid. And they're starting to put a lot of pieces together. Every single game they play, they're looking better and better. And I thought they were going to beat the Saints this last week. They were putting points up on them in the first half like it was nothing, but they got outcoached there in the second half, and their offense didn't really manage to do much. But their defense is ranked number 4 in the NFL. I think that's a defense that nobody really talks about. I think it's really overlooked. They only allow 16.9 points per game, and they're in the top 10 in yards allowed, sacks, and third down defense. So if the Titans make it into the playoffs, I wouldn't be surprised to see them make a run at the AFC Championship game.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned that. I was looking at them. They've hit a fire. Tannehill has definitely he's done something with that team that has absolutely been great to watch. Skyler, why don't you give me a couple of NFC and AFC teams that you think are going to be really shoo-ins, or people that teams that might shock some people?
I'm actually going to go with Seattle in the NFC. I picked them before Beast Mode came back. I think we've all seen Russell Wilson has that it factor in the playoffs. Except that one play that's on the coaches.
Yep.
I just think they're really good. They're playing hurt on defense. They're saying they're going to be healthy coming into the playoffs. I really got them and New Orleans. I think is going to be one of those two teams are going to take it.
Yeah.
But if anyone's going to creep up, I think Seattle. I think a lot of people are counting them out. They're 24th in rushing in the NFL right now. They've had major injuries in the backfield. I think signing Marshawn Lynch, I like him. I'm a big fan of it. Am I sold on it? Not 100%. We'll get into that later. But, I think it's going to be a good thing for them. I think they're going to go ahead and make a run if New Orleans doesn't smack them. The AFC, I love every single point you said about Tennessee. In my opinion, if Derrick Henry plays, they beat New Orleans, who I have as my number 1 team in the NFC. Don't sleep on Mahomes, but that's who I got sneaking up. I think they can be dangerous right now. If LaShawn McCoy gets going and this defense keeps playing the way that they're playing, watch out, Baltimore.
The NFC is there's at least, I would say, 4 really good teams that could any really one of them could take it. The Vikings sadly put themselves out of that conversation after this last game, but I'm looking at this from, you have the 49ers, you have the Green Bay Packers, you have the Seahawks, and you have the Saints. And the way I see it is offense wins games, defense wins championships. And when I'm looking at all this, boys, have we forgot about maybe possibly one of the hottest teams in the NFL other than the Ravens? That's not even close to the Ravens. I understand that. The Saints right now are playing some great football. And when you consider the fact that Teddy Bridgewater played, 4 games, threw 9 touchdowns, 2 picks, and came in for Drew Brees, who, by the way, missed 5 games and still threw just as many touchdown passes as Kirk Cousins, who was supposed to be in the Pro Bowl, according to myself. This guy has absolutely come out and, only missed 5 games. If there was any doubt that he is an elite quarterback, or not, excuse me, not that elite. If there was any doubt that he was going to come back this season and be the same player he was after that injury, it's gone. Right now, it is gone because of how well he has played down the stretch. Michael Thomas already broken the receiving record. Absolutely amazing. And he did it in 15 games. He's still got another game if he wants it. Look at this. I think people forget just because of the fact that Alvin Kamara hasn't exactly taken care of business this year. It's not all on him. they've got some scary running backs. Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara are a scary running game that people count out. Drew Brees is a future Hall of Famer. Their defense is stepping up. Cameron Jordan is like 33 and still getting 14.5 sacks a year.
He just signed Janoris Jenkins.
Yeah, this team. I don't think a lot of people realize how. I would say that they are one of the hottest teams in the NFL, other than the Ravens. The Ravens are their whole separate thing. But the Saints are one of the toughest teams in the entire league, let alone the NFC. And then look at that. Obviously, I just mentioned it. You got the Green Bay Packers, you got the 49ers. But let's look at it. The Green Bay Packers have had they had a great defensive performance against the Vikings. They went to play the 49ers. Things didn't go exactly according to plan there. But also look at the 49ers on that way too, because their defense the last couple of weeks has taken a step back. They've taken an L here and there. And I just think that just because they beat Drew Brees one time, I'm not counting out the Saints. I believe that Drew Brees is going to go get number 2. I think he's going to take down whoever it is in the AFC just because of I have that feeling, like the way you watch him, the way he plays, it's going to happen. And then the AFC, boys, the Patriots last couple of years, 6 Super Bowls for Mr. Brady. I realize that this whole thing about them cheating may actually have some validity to it. It may actually be factual. But let's not forget, despite the saying if you're not cheating, you're not trying. This team, the 11 straight playoff appearances, 6 Super Bowl rings, I'm not counting them out. I stopped counting them out when Mr. Brady came back down 28-3 at halftime against the Atlanta Falcons a couple years ago. At that moment, I don't think I'll ever admit he's the GOAT, but I will give him the fact that I will never doubt that man out ever again. And I've said this on the podcast. Belichick plans differently when he's in the playoffs. Like, he shuts people down in the playoffs. I feel like he's going to somehow, I don't know how. I'm not a fortune teller like Tristin, but I know that looking at this, I feel like the Patriots are going to come out and they are going to find a way to take care of business. And I think the Patriots are going to be in the Super Bowl again.
If there's anyone that can stop Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, I think Bill Belichick's the one that's going to do it.
Yep.
Yeah, you look at it. There's certain quarterbacks where they have weaknesses, and you can game plan for their weaknesses, or you have to make their strengths their weaknesses. And I've really thought really hard about it, and I don't know how Bill Belichick could possibly stop Baltimore's offense. I don't know. So if he can do it, I will have more respect for him than I've ever had. Probably for anybody, including Aaron Rodgers. But I don't know. I can't foresee any way you can stop Baltimore's offense. If you can stop Lamar Jackson running, he's proven to you that he can throw the ball now.
Yeah.
So it's only, and they can run the ball.
That's running game the entire.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure how hurt Mark Ingram is. I think he just had like a calf strain or something.
Yep.
But yeah, he'll be back for the playoffs for sure. None of them are playing this next week anyways, so they'll be well rested. It actually kind of worries me because they're about to have 2 weeks off, not playing football, and all these teams are going to be playing football this next week and the week after. Some teams really take a crap after they get bye weeks, like Green Bay did against San Francisco. So I think if Baltimore does lose, it'll be in the divisional round, their first game back, because they haven't been playing football the last couple of weeks. But just looking at it from a game planning perspective, I really don't see any way you can stop Baltimore's offense. Next year, I think teams will have more success against it. I don't really think this year anybody's figured it out quite yet.
I just want to say that if the Patriots win, it's not because of Tom Brady. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the Patriots defense is one that a couple weeks ago they were like just demolishing everybody. So
best secondary in the league.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm looking at this. I'm not saying that I believe Tom Brady's still a good quarterback by the unit measurement in the NFL. I just don't think he's his normal self yet. Again, he's proven that this year. Let's see here. Yep, I have. Obviously, the Ravens are the team to beat in the AFC. We covered that. Let's see here. Let's move into Marshawn Lynch with the Seahawks going back to Seattle. Kind of a happy little reunion, if you will. I'm ecstatic because I think he was a free agent when this whole thing went down, and obviously it was absolutely something to see because the Seahawks didn't really have any like CJ Precise in the backfield, they needed somebody to come in, and I'm really glad that it's Marshawn Lynch. Tristin, can you please tell me what your opinion of Mr. Lynch going back to Seattle?
Yeah, I like it. I think it's a smart move on Seattle's part and part of Pete Carroll because this is a guy who he knows the system. He knows what he's getting himself into. It's stuff that he knows already, most likely. In my opinion, I think all Seattle had left before signing Lynch was a 6th-round draft pick, Travis Homer, who has really barely played much of the season anyways. So, in my opinion, having Marshawn Lynch back doesn't really increase any productivity that they previously had with Carson or Penny on the ground. But I think they just needed a veteran presence in the backfield. You know, somebody who's tough, somebody who's durable, somebody who knows Pete Carroll's offense, somebody who's familiar with the system. They could have went and got C.J. Anderson. That's what I thought they were going to do. C.J. Anderson, I was really surprised he hasn't landed on a team. But Marshawn it makes a whole lot of sense for Seattle. And he's even said he has unfinished business in Seattle. And we know what that is, the 1-yard pass. But
I don't think you need to be reminded.
No, a reunion with Marshawn Lynch in Seattle was the much cooler option and probably a bit cheaper than C.J. Anderson as well. Also, it was a smart move by Seattle because it's going to lift a lot of the weight off of Russell Wilson's shoulders and give them a solid, reliable workhorse running back. I don't really see any problem with it. I assume he signed for super cheap. I don't really know the details yet. I don't know if you guys know him, but I haven't really looked.
1 year, 1 year deal.
1 year deal. It's like $63,000 a week, which is more than I'll make in 3 years. But it's what.
Yeah, that's pretty cheap. But it'll be exciting. Somebody who knows their way around the offense. And if he's got a little fire left in him, I wouldn't be surprised to see him just go on a tear and just rush for 100 yards a game. But I doubt that's going to happen based off of the way he played as of late. But it'll be really interesting. It was a good pickup for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Shearer, what do you think about this whole thing?
I like it. I'm a big fan of Marshawn Lynch. I really wanted to see him do well in Oakland, and I'm saying that as a Denver Broncos fan, just because he's from Oakland, Yep. I think he's going to do okay. I'm not 100% sold on it yet, but like I said, I like the move. I like the unfinished business. He's always had a chip on his shoulder. Like you said, he knows the scheme. It came down to him and C.J. Anderson. C.J. Anderson is a zone. He likes to run behind in a zone scheme. Seattle doesn't run a zone scheme. They run power football. They love running inside the tackles. Mm-hmm. Power, ISO, they love it. I actually think that it's going to come down to them in New Orleans, and I think he's going to have a big say in it. Because if Russell Wilson can keep that offense, on their toes, with that running game pounding them down the middle, I think it's going to open Metcalf wide open.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at this. I had a little saying here that I wrote down and underlined because I have to remember it. My memory is getting bad. I'm getting old. In this whole thing, I said that I don't think Marshawn Lynch will do much necessarily when you look at his stats and expect 150 yards a game. I don't think he'll do much, but I think he'll do enough. And by that, I mean this. The Seahawks needed somebody. I understood. Rashad Penny was a good running back. A guy. They had probably, arguably, one of the best running back duos in the entire NFL. So to lose Rashad Penny right away was huge because if you lose one of, it's like Batman losing Robin. All of a sudden, it's just Batman doing all the work. Okay, and Chris Carson has over 1,200 yards this year. So when the Seahawks lost Rashad Penny, all of a sudden, Mr. Carson is forced to be able to carry the load. He runs the football. He can catch the football. He can pass block. And now all the pressure is on him. So now that Seattle loses Mr. Carson, all of a sudden, they're without possibly one of their biggest offensive identities in the fact that, let's look back at the Vikings game. They brought in 6 offensive linemen and ran the ball right down the Vikings' throats. The Vikings didn't have a stop for it the entire game. That is exactly what the Seahawks did the entire game. Vikings couldn't stop it. And now you take out both of their starting running backs, and you try to put in a 33-year-old Marshawn Lynch. I believe that's old, yes. I just think that he's going to do just enough, and the Seahawks are going to be a tough team, no matter how you slice it. But my question is when it comes down to it, who are the Seahawks going to go more along the lines with? And in that it's either going to be Marshawn Lynch or Russell Wilson. I think they're going to go with Russell Wilson because he's the obvious choice. He's the franchise quarterback, a guy that is has proven time and time again to be able to be amazing in the playoffs. So the question is how much Marshawn Lynch will do, not what he'll do. I think he'll definitely do a good job for coming back, and I think I'm excited on unfinished business. Let's see here. NBA news. Yeah, let's get into that. That should be pretty fun. Let's the first question I want to bring up here in the NBA is because as a Lakers fan, my team is currently 4-0 in the last, or excuse me, 0-4, the other side of the spectrum there in the last 4 games. It's been really rough. I've watched I've watched the Lakers for the last couple years, and ever since I was in 7th grade, I've been a big Kobe fan, and that's really what sold me in the Lakers was Kobe, because it was Kobe. And looking at this, especially how the Lakers have played in years past, and most recently, they are they're not good. Like there seems to be a backbreaking point in the season over the last couple of years. Last year it was LeBron who went down with his groin injury. And the question I have is, are the Lakers in trouble? I think they are. And the reason I say the Lakers are in trouble is because of the fact that, yes, they just lost to the Clippers, who are arguably one of the best teams in the NBA. And they only lost by 5. But LeBron James is down. They have Anthony Davis. They're playing better defense, yes. But at some point, LeBron James, the Lakers are going to need LeBron James back. It doesn't matter because he is the heart and soul of that team. I looked on the stats today. He's consistently in battle with Anthony Davis for the most points and the most assists and the most rebounds in the he's their most important player. So when you lose your most important player at this early in the season, and let's not forget, had LeBron James not missed most of the season last year, I believe, or no, it wasn't even, it was like 16 games or whatever it was. Had he not missed 16 games, I believe the Lakers are going to the playoffs. And looking at this, if he misses any sort of extended period of time, I really don't see how the Lakers are going to be able to come out of this. I feel like, yes, it's only 4 games, but me being the panicking Vikings fan, looking at this, it's not good. And they need to find something, and whether it's Anthony Davis, Rajon Rondo, or whoever it is needs to step up because LeBron's not going to be there for a while. So one of you, Skyler, let's talk about this. I know we talked about it before the show. What's your whole take on the Lakers? Is it a lost cause? Is it time to pack up the tent?
I don't think so. If you look at what Rajon Rondo and Anthony Davis did in New Orleans 2 years ago, they were one of the best teams in the West. They made a playoff run. You add more weapons to that, they're not going to sink too far in the rankings. I think they're going to sit LeBron a little bit longer than he needs to sit. He's aging. Groin injuries, we all know as we're all athletes, that's something that can linger. Once you tweak that, man, it's just like that in the hamstring. I don't think that they're going to be in trouble. I wouldn't call it that yet. Kyle Kuzma balled on Christmas Day. Mm-hmm. If they can get consistent play out of him to replace LeBron, and they can have Rajon Rondo come in and run the point as LeBron's been running the point most of the year, I think they're going to be okay. Good defense. They just need to be consistent on offense because I don't think that Anthony Davis is going to be able to carry it. If they had DeMarcus Cousins, which Rajon Rondo had in New Orleans when he had Anthony Davis and they made that run, I think that would be a different story. But I wouldn't say they're in trouble yet.
Tristin, what are you looking at this? What are you thinking?
Yeah, as you know, I'm not a huge basketball guy until the NFL is over, and I go hop on the Warriors bandwagon for the rest of the season. That's how it usually goes for me. But
at least you're honest.
There's
I appreciate that.
Nothing to watch in Golden State this year. If anybody's in trouble, it's the Houston Rockets, because they just got their butts kicked by the Warriors, who are awful. But yeah, as far as the Lakers, from what I've seen and from what I've read, I don't really think they're in much trouble at all. I mean, they're still in first place in the West at 24-7. Yeah, they've lost 4 straight, but I think they're fine. They just need to be better on defense, more efficient on offense with what they have. Rajon Rondo playing point guard the way he used to play point guard and get acclimated to that system. But yeah, they definitely have the pieces in place to snap out of their slump, but they just need to be patient. They need to be patient with LeBron's injury and getting him back when he's ready to come back. They don't want to push that and hurt him, kind of like what happened to KD last year. I think they pushed him back from his injury way too fast.
Yep.
So you don't want to see that happen with anybody. So yeah, as long as they stay patient and they don't hurt any of their stars in the process, I don't think Lakers fans should be worried at all.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the West is I'm sorry, Colton. The
Go
West
ahead.
is kind of, how would I say it? Let's say the last 8 years, the West has been so dominant and so thick. Every team's struggling right now. You have Denver, who's my team. They're not playing as good as they are. Jokic he's in a funk right now. He's still playing very good basketball, but he's in a funk. Our backcourt isn't playing good. The Clippers, they're probably playing the best basketball in the West right now. Houston, as he said, they just got beat by the team I hate the most that isn't even that good this year. Dallas, they have big injuries too. Their best players hurt. Utah, they have a lot of consistent role players. They're going to be who Utah is. OKC, I don't know how they're 7 right now. I mean, Chris Paul is playing decent right there. Portland, they're struggling a little bit too, but Carmelo Anthony's playing good. So I don't think the Lakers are in trouble. Everybody in the West is struggling right now. It's too early in the NBA season to say anyone's struggling.
Me looking at this, when I say they're struggling or in trouble, me looking is it start to teeter towards that? You know, I can understand, 3-4 games, I understand it. You know, you're just not shooting off from behind the arc. You're not playing well defensively. Maybe you just got to get out of your funk. I understand that. But at some point, I think I was expecting it myself in the fact that it's happened over the last couple of years. Just one bad thing happens, all of a sudden the Lakers are they're just like a shell of themselves. I mean, obviously losing your best player last year didn't help anything, but I just, the way I've watched it, they're teetering towards something bad happening, and I hate to say that against my own team, but looking at this, it starts out 0-4, but then it goes to 1-15. So the question is that I want to know if the Lakers can hold down the ship without LeBron, and I don't know if that's not a bash on Anthony Davis or anybody. He's obviously a franchise player, and Anthony Davis is a very good player. And then you also got Rajon Rondo, excuse me. And then you have also just that entire Kyle Kuzma. That's another question, though. How many points does Kuzma have to put up? Because if you think about it, he's averaging anywhere from that like 11 to 17 range. He put up 25 on Christmas Day. I think it was like
18 to 22 a game.
18 to 22. Well, I think that's what I had him at as what he had to average all season long. Because if you put Kuzma, LeBron, and Anthony Davis out, those three averaging anywhere from, well, Kuzma is probably going to be on the lower end of that because, I mean, it's Anthony Davis and LeBron James. They're going to get the ball 95% of the time. So when you put that into consideration and you say that, okay, Kyle Kuzma's not going to get the ball as much, I think if he scores 16 points a game, I think the Lakers can get back on track here. Dwight Howard. I mean, I'm so ecstatic that he's been able to come the way he's come back to the LA. Like, it's such a great thing to see. Like, I didn't know. I thought he was going to average like 2 points and 2 points and 3 rebounds a game. Like, I didn't know he was going to have this much of an impact. He's playing really well.
He is.
And I just think that the Lakers, that maybe they're not necessarily in trouble yet, but it's a question you have to ask. 0-4 skid. Is this something that could lead to something bigger? I do think it is, but I could be wrong. Something that happens to be decided in the future. Let's see here. We have to answer this. Race for the MVP. There is at least, I have 5 players here that I believe could all be in the MVP conversation. Skyler, what do you think as far as the MVP conversation? Who season ends today? You have to know who's your MVP. Who's you picking?
Putting away my feelings and being a big time LeBron James fan. I'm gonna have to say the Greek Freak up in Milwaukee, man. I mean, averaging 30.5 points a game, 5.7 assists a game, 12.9 rebounds, 1.5 steals a game, and 1.2 blocks a game. I understand they just got smoked on Christmas Day, but me being a big LeBron fan, and I want to say him, even though he's hurt. If the season ended today, it's him.
Me look at this, Tristan. What about you?
Yeah, I'm right there with him. I did some research, and I think if the season ended today, I think Giannis would be the no-brainer for me. Just looking at the numbers and what he's surrounded with, he's not surrounded with as much star power or firepower as these other guys are. So just him being able to carry his team the way he does. I mean, he's only 25 years old. He's on the verge of. I don't even want to say he's on the verge of it. He's creeping up to being one of the best players in the world, even if he's probably a top 3 or 4 player right now.
Top 3.
Yeah. Top 3 probably. But He's one deep playoff run away from taking over the league and becoming the best player in the NBA. If they can do something this year, if he can go back-to-back MVPs, I think he probably will be considered as the best player in the NBA. But at this point in the season, yeah, he's definitely my front runner for MVP.
I like your statement there because here's my thing. He's like Kevin Durant. They're long, tall, and lanky, right? I think he's a better athlete than Durant, hands down.
Yeah.
I think if he can develop a jump shot that just like Durant kills people with, I don't think that he can be touched in the NBA.
No, even this year, he's shooting a lot better from the arc this year than he ever has. I think he's like 31% from the arc, But it's good.
It's professional sports. I mean, look at LeBron. He could barely shoot when he came in the league. He was just like a Zion, just an athlete coming in playing off raw talent, and he developed the jump shot.
Right now, actually, Giannis is 33% from beyond the arc, so he's really shooting a lot better.
And I did listen to this on Christmas Day. Their coach did say their coach used to be on San Antonio's staff. They did say that he has leadership mentalities like Tim Duncan. That goes a long way. I think with that being said, and the type of work ethic, I mean, he's from a foreign country. I don't want this to sound wrong. He works a lot harder than a lot of people do that are in the NBA that have been handed stuff to him. I think that the sky's the limit for him. I don't think he's going to take a seat back and he's not going to get complacent. I think he's going to grow and become the best player in the league once LeBron's finally done.
Yep. I absolutely agree with that. And I gave a lot of love to Giannis last year when they were making that deep playoff run. I really wanted him to be in the finals, but it just wasn't in the stars. This team just couldn't hit his three because, their threes. And Giannis was one of those. He's the offense. He's the offense. So, it all revolves around him, and he couldn't get it done in the paint too. But looking at this, if I'm looking at if I'm taking everybody, LeBron, Kawhi, Giannis, Luka, and Harden. If Luka's not injured right now, I believe that Luka is in that mix.
I agree.
I believe that Luka, and this is something, and the thing about it for me is the fact that he's so young. Like, I know everybody, when they think of the Greek Freak, they think of this guy that was each year keeps getting better, keeps doing his thing. And I know Luka's not technically injured right now, but he's not himself. He only played 22 minutes when he averages 32. Okay, you give him another 10 minutes, he scores at least 35 to 40 points a game. With everything that Luka's doing at such a young age, I think he really, especially from an efficiency rating and everything, this guy he deserves some credit. He's a PER of a 31.7. As when Giannis won the MVP last year, 30.9. This is absolutely, like, people are forgetting about this kid that's so young, and it's a kind of a travesty. Even though, yes, I know Giannis has almost a 34 PER, but let's not forget this young kid Luka. Harden usually gets the ball, like 95% of the time. He's probably going to be in the conversation for a while. That's just how it goes. But Giannis is the one out of all of this that I would say improves the most every year. Like, coming up in the years, there was years, okay, his first year in the NBA, barely 7 points a game. Then he made the jump to 13, made the jump to 17, 23, 27, 28, 30.5. You can see consistent improvement there. And now he's added a three-point shot into it. Harden has never been a great defensive player. We all know that.
Never.
But no. And if you look at it, Luka Doncic, LeBron, Kawhi, they've all have their defensively. But I take Giannis over Kawhi any day. And that's not me taking a shot at Kawhi because he dismantled the Lakers a couple. Clutch. I'm starting to think that Kawhi could be in the conversation for becoming one of the most clutch players to ever play because every time his team has needed him, dude's made a play. So if I'm looking at this right now, I'm picking Giannis as well because just everything that you're seeing from this guy right now, and that's anything can happen. I think everything is subject to change at this point. But I want to bring up another tidbit here. Anthony Davis can't throw a rock in the ocean right now, like from 3-point range. He's shooting, I believe this is pretty close to a career low. It's the third technically lowest 3-point percentage that he's had. He's shooting 29% from the 3-point line. His second year in the NBA, he shot 22%. And I'm looking at the year after that, he shot 8.3%. Like that, not great. So looking at this, I think Anthony Davis is going to start to hit a hot streak. Who, by the way, was it me or was Anthony Davis taking MVP votes away from LeBron James? Like I felt like he was legitimately starting to make people question who the best player on the Lakers was. And I think Anthony Davis is starting to do that. So I think it's a lob up between any of these five guys if you really think about it. So That's the way I think about it. Did you want to say something, Skyler?
Yeah, I agree. When the season came out right away, and what did he have? 40 points and 20 rebounds. That crazy game. I mean, the first 6 or 7 games, people were saying, "Oh, LeBron took a step back. He's going to win the MVP. This is his team now." I mean, like you said about the 3-point percentage, how much has he had to do with LeBron James? How much did he used to have to do? I think that might have a play in those numbers sliding down a little bit, but with LeBron out, I think he's going to catch fire and keep going. I mean,
because he's got it. He has to. Like, you know, you just said it. With Kuzma having to step up, with Rajon Rondo not necessarily being a big time scorer, but he's a facilitator in my opinion.
And look at all defensive player.
Yeah, look at all this. I still feel like, I really feel like he's going to come out and just start to prove to people that, you know, Mr. Davis should have been in this conversation a long time ago. Like, I think people forget, you know, when you listen to ESPN or you listen to some of these other shows and you hear these people talk about some of the greatest players in the NBA, Anthony Davis is a game changer. And when he came to the Lakers, they were immediate title favorites until, of course, Kawhi did the whole decision thing, which absolutely killed my prediction on the podcast. But I still think that it all runs obviously through LeBron, but Anthony Davis is going to remind some people. But I think this was I think the Lakers. It's going to be really interesting to see. Oh, by the way, Lakers lost to Denver. That was not good. I did not like that. I was kind of shocked that happened.
The Lakers are in a slump right now. My team shouldn't have won that game, and being the Nuggets, they're just in a slump. The Lakers are a better team than the Nuggets are. Jamal Murray is not playing the basketball he was playing last season. The big money, I think, is getting to him a little bit. Jokic is not playing what he has to do, but we got lucky that game. And then a point you said before, I don't even think James Harden should ever be named in the MVP conversation. There's old guys that are 40 or 50 years old making 15, 20 free throws in a row at the YMCA down the street. I'm sorry. If you're drawing that many fouls and getting to the line like that, I understand it's part of the game, but that is not MVP caliber basketball. That is not taking over a game. That is manipulating the game of basketball.
Wow. That's kind of funny because, I mean, a lot of people consider him, you know, that to be an important part of it. Like Kobe, when I was watching Kobe took over a game. Kobe, and I think I point this play. I used this play a lot last year, and I think people hate me for this because I use the same play. But James Harden had a chance to win a game, I believe, against the Bucks, to go up, to finally win a game, to give him a chance. He had a chance to take a shot and hit it. And he was more worried about the foul than he was worried about making the shot. And if it's Kobe had the Mamba mentality. I mean, he's going to go and make the shot and get the foul. It didn't matter if
he's going to make it and get the free throw.
Yeah, and James Harden was more worried about the 3 free throws coming his way, and you could see it with the way he shot, and B, with the way he got up. Like, he didn't even care about the shot. Kobe was following through. Kobe had that mentality that wasn't you don't find on the street corner everywhere. So I still think that it's kind of a hidden thing with Harden. He's going to score most points and that user-friendly or the point guard-friendly Mike D'Antoni offense. But, I mean, if the guy keeps putting up 36 to 40 points a game, it's, of course, I mean, yeah, like you said, he's shooting 10 to 20 free throws a game. So I guess it's kind of easy to see. But, I mean, there's no debate as far as Kobe and
Kobe went head-to-head with Michael Jordan.
Oh, yeah. He never backed
those stories about them on the U.S. team going at it in practice together when he was young. I mean, Kobe was not backing down from anybody. He doesn't care if you're first team all defensive NBA, if you're the defensive MVP, defensive player of the year in front of you. He's going to get to the rim. He's going to hit the shot in your face, and you're going to hear about it. And honestly, we don't have anybody in the league that's like that right now. We don't have anybody that will step up, hit a shot, get to the rim, and let you know about it consistently like Kobe. When Kobe left the league, we haven't had anybody since. You say Kawhi? Kawhi's good. That little shot off the rim, bounce in last year that he had up in Toronto, you know, that was a great shot. He's had multiple, but, you know, I just miss that fire that you get from somebody like Kobe. We don't have anybody like it, and I want someone to step up like that. I don't know if it'll ever happen again.
I hate to say this, me being the gigantic Kobe fan that I am, I missed his 60-point game. I missed his last game he ever played, and I watched the highlights like a noob. And I couldn't believe what I was watching. Like, I'd missed the entire thing because I got a notification. Kobe's at like 35. I'm like, yeah, he'll go with 45. Not a big deal. It's Kobe. You know, he's going to shoot 50 shots and get there. I woke up the next day and saw that the man scored 60, and I missed it. There's nothing I can say to the man now. Like, I'm sorry, Mr. Mamba. I missed that. I felt absolutely awful about the whole thing. But I don't think and maybe this is me being a little bit biased. I'll admit that right off the back here. But Kobe's 60 is a little bit different than Harden's 60, if you know what I'm saying.
It's a well-earned 60.
Absolutely. And the thing about Harden is, he gets to the free throw line a lot, but Kobe would dunk on you and just leave that. He would make you question if you wanted to play basketball. Harden does a little bit of shimmy and does a little, hits a fadeaway, which is actually it's an impressive shot. But looking at this, Harden is clearly not even close to the same athlete that Kobe is, and it's just something that not even close to the same athlete. And I do miss it too, and I still feel guilty about the time I missed his last game ever. That was possibly one of his greatest in the Staples Center. So
when you saw the teeth poking out on the bottom, when you saw that, you knew Kobe was taking over. The whole arena was on their feet.
Was I wrong when I said I believe that was the last true game that we saw of the real Kobe? Like, that was the last time we saw Kobe being himself.
Great players have to go out with great performances. That's his signature. When you sign a document at the dealership, you sign your signature. That was him signing his signature in the NBA.
Yep. Yes, sir. Let's see here, man. We got anything else we want to talk about? I mean, do we have any bold predictions for the playoffs? Anything?
What do you guys got for the bold predictions?
Let's see. A bold prediction for me. I'm going to go out and say that the Vikings get 50'd in the first round of the playoffs because of everything that went down on Monday night. It's a national embarrassment, and I'm going to say Mike Zimmer gets fired. And I feel I want to make this abundantly clear. 5 years ago, when Mr. Zimmer came to the Minnesota Vikings, the Vikings defense was number 31 overall, and they allowed. It was crazy. Like, it was like either 7 or 10 comeback game-winning drives. He has improved their secondary. He has consistently made them a playoff contending team. But it's the fact that you never have a coach and not a quarterback. You have both at the same time. Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, Mike Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger, Mike McCarthy and Brett Favre. You have a quarterback and you have a coach that come by. He never got the quarterback right. He never got that. He never found that the answer for the Vikings at quarterback, and that's not all on him. I think there was, once they signed Kirk Cousins, they kind of pigeonholed themselves, and we all knew what Kirk Cousins was going into this. I hate to say that I love Mike Zimmer so much. It's crazy. Like, I love everything he's done for the Vikings. Their defense is back to where it should be. They've been a top 15 in defense since his time getting there. They're the number one defense in 2017, really close to being number one in number 20 in 2016. He's done his job as the defensive coach, but the quarterback situation, I think it's been what's plagued Minnesota for too long. And now that especially their offensive line is, they need an offensive line, but they've much improved from what they were last year. I have to give them props. I've given Garrett Bradbury a lot of props on the podcast. Even guys on free agent signings like Josh Klein, Pat Elflein. Well, he was kind of not very great on Monday night, but there was still a lot of improvement from the Vikings. So I just think that it's time, and I hate to say that. I'm dreading the day that it's going to happen. They're going to fire him. I really hope they don't, but I just have a feeling that that's how this season is going to end. Tristan, you want to give us that prediction about the Packers real quick?
About the Packers?
Yes, give me a bold prediction.
Shoot.
Take one out, big guy.
They're going to get the number one seed. I think Seattle is going to beat San Francisco this next week. I think Green Bay is going to beat Detroit. I think they're going to end up with the number one seed. I don't want to make any playoff predictions, but I do think they're gonna get the number one seed. I think they'll win a couple playoff games. But and AFC, I think New England's gonna lose its first playoff game. I don't care who they play. I think they're gonna lose. They're struggling against good defenses. They're finding it very difficult to put points up against good defenses. And if they have to see Tennessee's defense, that's a really good defense. If they have to see Kansas City's defense, that's a really good defense now. Yeah. They have to see Baltimore. Baltimore already spanked them once. I think they could I think Belichick would plan better the second time around. But then again, it's the second time the Ravens have seen them too. So I don't think they'll be surprised by anything. I don't really think it matters who they play in the first round. even Buffalo. I think they're going to lose in the first round or the divisional round because they're probably going to get a first round bye. But I think they're going to lose to whoever they play against. And I think Tennessee is going to go to the AFC Championship game. And I think they're going to lose to Baltimore. I think Baltimore will go to the Super Bowl and probably win it regardless of who they play from the NFC.
Skyler, last minute bold prediction for you, big fella.
New England will not lose their first playoff game. My bold prediction. I'm gonna go right to the big game. New Orleans and Baltimore. It's gonna come down to a battle, and Lamar Jackson is gonna win the league MVP, the Super Bowl MVP, and he's gonna bring Baltimore another Super Bowl trophy. It's gonna come down. It's gonna come down to Drew Brees and Lamar Jackson in the big game.
I like it.
Yeah, I like that too. There's so much things that have to play out
But
now.
New England will win 1 or 2 playoff games, and don't be surprised if they don't beat Baltimore. Baltimore is my pick, but I wouldn't be shocked if New England gets back to another damn Super Bowl.
Yeah, no kidding. I think that's all we got for this week. I got to start by saying, obviously, Skyler, man, it's always been a pleasure. You know, I always appreciate having you on. I always love talking sports with you, man. Thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. Brucey, I really appreciate it, man. I tune in and listen to all the podcasts. You guys are great. Sorry it's been taking for work so long to get on, but anytime you guys want it, I'm down. I love it.
Absolutely. We really appreciate you, man. We'll get you, see if we can get you a t-shirt as well. Complimentary of the Sports Beat podcast for coming on the show. Tristin, you know what, man? I think this is 26 we've signed off now. They're kind of flying at this point. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm getting older. My eyesight's going and probably balding a little bit too at this point. But no, it's always a pleasure, man.
Yeah, it's been fun. I'm starting to get little gray hairs in my beard, so I'm gonna keep shaving it so you don't have to see it. But yeah, it's definitely fun. I like having new people on the show too. Keeps you on your toes, and most of them I think have been fans of different NFL teams, so it's cool to see different perspectives for sure.
Absolutely. Well, let's sign this thing off. Remember to again subscribe for weekly NFL, MLB, all sporting takes, so that way you guys can get those in and everything. Remember to follow us on all social media. Remember to follow Skyler on all social media platforms. We really deeply appreciate that. And everybody, make sure to take it easy.